When I tell you February came and went, February came and went. And my reading did not go along with the way it was coming and going because I didn't do much reading. I read only like 9 books. So I don't have much to tell you about, but I'm gonna tell you about these 9 books that I did read. I have no idea what I was doing this month because my reading, it could have been better. Like I said, I only did 9 books, and then I DNF 2 books this month. Well, the month of February, and since I went on ahead and did some DNFs, we're just gonna go ahead and talk about those because there's only 2 of them that I DNF, like I said. So the first book I DNF was Cherish Farah by Bethany C. Morrow. When I tell you this book was so boring, it was boring. Like the premise was good. I really thought that it was going to be something that I was going to enjoy, but as I was reading it, first off, the main character got on my nerves because she thought she was all conniving and smart and that she can just manipulate people the way she wants. But she came off stupid. Like I didn't even get that far in the book. I think I only got to like I want to say maybe 75 pages of the book. So the book was a girl. Well, shoot, there's 2 girls, Farah and Cherish. I can't remember who was who. I think Cherish was the best friend, and Farah was the one that thought she could manipulate everybody. But Farah's parents, they moved because they lost all their money, so they had to move from their house. And they used to have this big house, and Farah wanted her house back. And her whole thing was she went to move with Cherish, but she wanted to be back into this big house that her parents owned. And she was trying to manipulate the parents to be able to get the money back so they can get back. It was just weird. Like, it got to the point where I was like, I don't care about this book anymore. I just ended up trying to find reviews and trying to get spoilers. And then when I got the spoilers, I was like, you know what? I'm glad I didn't finish this book because this sounds stupid. So that one, I'm not even gonna try that one again. Not at all. My second DNF was The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And the thing about The New Jim Crow was it was giving great information. Like it's not that the book was boring. It really was giving great information. And I may one day go back to this book, but the only problem with that book was it was repetitive. It kept saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, I get the point that you're trying to make, but when are you going to give me new information? So that's the reason I couldn't finish it because of all the repetitiveness of it. And after a while, I was like, I can't keep doing this. You can't keep telling me the same story over and over and over because now I'm getting bored and I don't care about it anymore. All right, so I mentioned those 2 DNFs. Those are the only ones that I DNF this month. So now I'm about to tell you about the books that I did finish. The first one I finished was Real. Yeah, Real, as in Reel, like a movie reel or something. And that was by Kennedy Ryan. I'd heard so many people trying to talk about this book, and they were saying how this book was so good and it was so great and it was so amazing, and then just couldn't put it down. And I didn't get that same thing. I got bored after a while, and I felt like, okay, so it's about 2 people. You have Neva and you have Cannon. Cannon was trying to do this big movie because he's normally doing like documentaries. And the one time that he was supposed to do this big movie, he ended up having like a relationship with the main actress. And when they broke up, he got fired from the movie. When he got fired from the movie tanked. They tried to say it was his fault, but he wanted to get back into doing, instead of doing just the documentaries he was doing, he wanted to get back and do full feature films. So he decided to do this film about a jazz musician. So he was looking for the perfect person to do this, to take the main role of the jazz musician. And he ended up going to a play, and Neva was. She was an understudy, but this night she had to go and take over. So he saw her and he was like, yeah, that's who I want to play the main character. So her being a new actress, like they didn't think that she'll be able to do it, but he ended up like making sure she was the one that was doing the movie. Anyway, she was the main actress. So it just goes from them doing the movie and how everything goes along with them, it being her first movie and is a big thing for her, and how they're having this relationship, and he's like, oh my gosh, the same thing's going to happen to me if I had this relationship with her, but I really love her, and she was falling for him too. And the thing about this book was they made huge emphasis on Neva having, she had, oh my gosh, I can't remember what the woman had. I mean, I read this book like a long time ago. It felt like forever, but also I was kind of bored of it. Lupus. Neva had lupus. And at first she was like, oh, don't worry about it. It's not that I have that type of lupus. I don't have the bad type of lupus. I just have the lupus where it makes me feel tired and I'm losing my hair and I have this and I have that. But she ended up like during the movie, her lupus developed to the more severe version of lupus, and then it goes with them having a whole thing about lupus. I get that was something that Kennedy Ryan wanted to put in there, but to be quite honest, it was very unnecessary. Like the way it was written, I feel like it was just a plot to help move the book along, because after a while the book, like, there was nothing to really talk about this book. Like the one thing I wanted to see, and it didn't even happen, was I wanted to see at the very end, like after everything happened and she had to get surgery and everything like that. I think she got surgery. 'Cause like I said, I read this in the beginning of February, and it's very unforgettable, to be quite honest. But I wanted to see like what happened when the movie was done, and the movie fared out. But you didn't get that. I was like, you know what? This ain't the book for me. For me, I gave that book 2.9 stars, and I kept it pushing to the next book. And the next book was These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I'm gonna be honest. When I started this book, I was like, I'm not gonna like this book. This book, it sounds like it's gonna be good. It was a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but it happens in Shanghai in the 1920s, I want to say. I think it was the 1920s that it happened. So it was a retelling of Romeo and Juliet. You don't get the same thing, like the same love story. That doesn't happen. So you have Juliet, and instead of Romeo, is Roma, and they're both parts of two different gangs. Juliet, she had to move to America for a while because there was this big blow up, like a bomb that happened at her parents' home, and it was Roma that did the bomb. And so she had to leave and she had to move to America, but she ended up coming back to China, and she was like, I'm killing them. I'm killing the whole family. We gonna get them. So they have this big gang war. It was like, I believe her gang was called the Scarlet Roses, and he was like the White Rose. I can't remember the gang's name. I'm gonna stop even trying because I can't do it. But it's basically just the retelling, and what happens is they call it the sickness that's happening in China, and what happens is all these people are like basically tearing their throats out. They're like really scratching their throats out on their own, and they find out that there's this monster, and when the monster gets you, it releases these parasites, and the parasites, they bore into your scalp and under your skin and your brain, and they take over and they make you kill yourself. So they had to work together. Juliet and Roma have to work together so they can figure out what's going on. At the end, they do end up figuring out what's going on, and they kind of solve it. They figure out what's happening, who did it, and they kind of solve it. But they figured out, oh my gosh, this isn't the end. It's something else. There's another book, and I am going to be reading that book, because this book right here was long. Oh, this book was long, but it was good. For me, I had to give this book a 4 stars. Now, I was like, okay, that was doing it. Yeah, it was good. I was telling everybody about that book. I was like, yo, so my next book's gonna have to be good. And I decided that the next book I was gonna read is this book called The Taking of Jake Livingston, and that's by Ryan Douglas. Now, this is a book that's been on my radar since last year, and I was like, oh yeah, I really want to read that book. So I did, and it was a book. I read it. I finished it. It's a real thing. Um, so, okay, let me just tell you a little bit about it. So, it's about, of course, Jake. And Jake is able to see ghosts and see spirits. And he meets a spirit called Sawyer. And Sawyer is actually this teenager who started a school shooting and killed a lot of kids during a school shooting. So, Sawyer is haunting him, and you find out, okay, so we're gonna skip a lot of it because that's basically the premise of it. Jake is trying to fight Sawyer off and help Sawyer pass on because Sawyer is really trying to kill people still. There's parts of this book that piss me off. Like, there's a part in this book where Sawyer wants to take over Jake's body, and the whole time he's trying to take over Jake's body because he wants to finish what he started. So Sawyer is trying to take over Jake's body, and Jake knows the reason that Sawyer wants to take over his body. He knows he wants to kill people, and there's a particular person that he knows for a fact Sawyer wants to kill. But he lets him take his body over and he lets him kill the person. And then all of a sudden, Jake wants to act like he's so hurt that Sawyer did it. I'm like, dude, how are you so hurt that he killed this man and you feel so much regret, but you let him take over your body? I don't get why you crying. Shut the hell up. You did it. You knew what you were doing. But enough of this book. This book, it could have been so much better. I felt like it could have been, but it really didn't give me what I needed. So all I could get this book was like a 3.2, and it was only because there were certain things that happened in the book. Like, okay, just to go back to it, because I do got to talk about this one part. So Jake, he's like, he finds out what school Sawyer went to. He goes to the school that Sawyer went to, where he did the whole school shooting, and he goes at night and he goes into the school and he witnesses all the ghosts at the school and he sees what they were going through, and he meets one of the ghosts that's a girl and she's missing her hands, and he's trying to help her pass over, and she's like, well, I don't have my hands. And he's like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. So they end up coming across Sawyer, and they find out that Sawyer is actually, when he went back to the school, and he's killing people now, what he's doing is he's absorbing their souls. So the girl was like, well, he ain't getting me. So she fights Sawyer and she ends up getting her hands back because she fought Sawyer and that hurt Sawyer's ghost. That was my favorite part. But the rest of it, I could have did without. So if that part didn't happen, it probably would have been lower than this 3.2. Now, the next two books were some graphic novels. I've already spoken about them, so I'm not going to go too much into detail about them. Uh, but that's The Night Eaters by Marjorie Liu. I'm not sure how you would pronounce it. And I don't want to mispronounce the woman's name, which I probably already did. And for that one, it was a 4.5 for me. And then I read TMNT The Last Ronin. If you don't know what TMNT is, it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, my all-time favorite cartoon. They straight up got a 5 for me. That book was amazing. But like I said, I've already spoken about those in an earlier podcast, so I'm not going to talk about it again. But like I said, I spoke about those two already, so I don't want to rehash and go through it again. Uh, but, but my second favorite book of this year that I could not put down so far is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. So Razorblade Tears is about these two fathers, Ike and Buddy, and their sons are murdered, and their sons are Isaiah and, ooh, I can't think of that boy's name. And I'm not going to sit here trying to figure it out. Just know that their sons were married to each other and they were murdered. So Ike and Buddy are going around trying to figure out who killed their kids. Well, they found out about this girl that the sons were helping and that they knew. And they're like, okay, well, she can tell us what happened to our sons. And they find her and they get information from her. But there's also this biker gang that's after them because they want to get revenge or something. I, this is sad that I can't remember this book when it really was a good book. I could not put this book down. I don't know why I can't remember it. It's crazy. You know why I can't remember it? Because I read it so long ago and I read so much afterwards. But I am going to be honest and tell you, again, I got to reiterate it. I cannot put this book down. It was a 5 for me. And especially when you got to the ending, ridiculous. Let me just go back to the parts I do remember. So Ike and Buddy, they are the fathers of the two men that were murdered. There's a situation that happens where Buddy is trying to get Ike to help him go find who did it, who killed their kids. And Ike is like, nope, I just got out of prison years ago. I don't want to go back to it. Now, they both were in prison for something. Ike's like, I don't want to do it. So he gets a phone call from the graveyard telling him, hey, yeah, so the kid's tombstones, your son's tombstone and his husband's tombstone, it's been vandalized. So he goes to the gravesite and he sees the tombstone, and the tombstone is broken. and it has homophobic slurs written all over the tombstone. And that's what get Ike to going. And he was like, "All right, buddy, we got to do what we got to do." Now, when you find out who did that, this book is a soap opera for real. Like, it is an action-packed soap opera, and you could not put it down. Because I know I couldn't put it down. I just kept going. I was telling you, look, this is what's happening. Oh my gosh, yeah, this happened too. Oh my god, you gotta wait till you get to this part. I was excited about this book. So, like I already told you, needless to say, it was a five for me. So after that, I was like, you know what? Let me go back into my romance because, like I said, this year's I'm adding romance into my books. So I was like, okay, I've already read Real. Let me try to get a different romance. So I read the book Fake Dates and Mooncakes by Sher Lee. I hope I'm saying that right because it's just SHER. So my head is saying sure, but we're just going to go along with it because it just sounds like that's right. If I'm mispronouncing it, I am so sorry. So this book is about two guys. You have Dylan, and I believe it was Theo that was the one that was from the rich family. But how it goes is that, like I said, there's Dylan and Theo. One of them is from a rich family. The other one is from a poor family. And the other one wants to get on this competition to have to make mooncakes because of something that him and his mother were supposed to do, but his mother passes away. And he has to get to this competition. So the other one, Dylan Theo, I can't remember which one is which. They're like, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor. I know we got off at the bad foot, but I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend at my family's wedding." And the other one is like, no. I was like, "Look, just do it, and I help you with the competition." So that's what happens. They do the whole fake boy thing, relationship thing at this wedding, and then they do end up like really falling for each other. And what you found out, they already had feelings for each other anyway. And at the end, they end up doing the whole mooncake competition. I mean, it was one of those fluffy books where you already knew what was going to happen, so I didn't have much. My expectations were extremely low for this book, and I think if they were high, I really would not have liked it because, like I said, it was very like you already knew what was going to happen. There was no there was nothing. You already knew what the ending was going to look like. You didn't even have to like second guess it because you already knew how it was going to be. Because of course they do the whole thing. They get together in the end, and the boy who wanted to do the mooncake competition wins the mooncake competition. I mean, you already saw the writing on the wall reading this book. It was just one of those books. But for me, like it was a three. It was cool, but it could have been better. So for the next book I read was How We Fall Apart by Katie Zhao. And they were saying that this book was like Gossip Girl. And I see where they got the whole Gossip Girl from, but it really wasn't like Gossip Girl. So this book is about Jamie, who ends up dying. She's like the popular girl in school, and she's found dead. And what happens is she has four friends: Nancy, Crystal, Akil, and Alexander. And the fact that I remember these names is amazing. And I need to give myself a pat on the back. Because when it comes to names, I am terrible at names. But you have Nancy, Crystal, Akil, and Alexander, and they were all her friends at one point in time, and they stopped being friends with her. So there starts to be this. There's a school page. It's kind of like a Facebook or something. And on the school page, they're like, "Ooh, one of these people killed her. Which one could it be? They all had a secret." So they start to slowly release people's secrets. Now, some of these secrets, I'm like, that wasn't that bad. Like, I don't see how that was like a devastating secret. So, one person's secret was his brother was an escaped criminal and he was hiding his brother. Secret, but not that big of a secret. The biggest secret was one of them was on the track team and he was using drugs to help enhance kind of he was using enhancement drugs to help him, but it wasn't to help him on the track team. It was just to help him on his everyday life during school and everything. Somebody's secret was before she got to the school, she was in a gang and there was a big gang fight and she fought this girl and the girl she's in a coma. Okay, I get it. That could be a big secret too. The biggest secret, which was a secret but not a secret as well, was the other one, Nancy. She was sleeping with Jamie's cousin. And Jamie's cousin ends up being like the teacher's assistant. So they were like, oh, yeah, she's sleeping with the teacher to get good grades, which is not how it happened. There's this big overlapping story that all of them went through: Jamie, Nancy, Crystal, Akil, Alexander. There was this big secret that all of them was going through. Jamie is the type of person that she wants everything. There was this new girl that came into the school. She started winning stuff over Jamie. So Jamie was like, we're going to set her up. We are going to humiliate her. We're going to get her to leave the school. So they did this. Everybody wasn't really into doing it, but Jamie talked them all into doing it. And they did this. And there was a fight, and they pushed the girl. And there's this statue, and they pushed the girl, and the girl hit her head on the statue. And where the stupid part was the death that happened to the girl. I'm not gonna tell you how why it was stupid because I'm gonna end up spoiling the ending, but I can just tell you that this ending, it made no sense. And I get why it could have been a shock factor, but it made no sense for that to be the ending and why everything happened that way. So for me, I mean, it was enjoyable. And like I said, I could see why they would say Gossip Girl. Oh, and Pretty Little Liars. They were like, the book is like Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars. And I could see that, but I mean, a 3.8. That's what I gave it. Okay. My last book of the month. I had such high hopes for this book. So, the beginning of this year, actually last year, I had purchased this book along with my favorite book from last month, which is 7 Days in June. I had purchased these two books, and I was reading like the first couple pages to see which one I wanted to read. When I read the first couple pages of this book, I was like, oh, this is going to be the book. Yes, I'm going to love this book. And I read the first couple of pages of 7 Days in June, and I was like, this sounds stupid. But I ended up just reading 7 Days in June. Loved it. This book, when I finally read it, not so much. And this book is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. See, after reading Real, I should have learned my lesson. But I was like, no, I'm going to give her another chance because I think the book is going to be good. Everybody's talking about how this book is so great and it's so good. That's a lie. Straight up lie. So this book is about two people who were divorced. You have Yasmin and you have Josiah. And Josiah opens up this restaurant, and it's called, I want to say Grits because that sounds right. It's called Grits. They are running this restaurant together, and they're like trying to live as a divorced couple and co-parent and how they're going to do this and all of that. Well, Josiah's in a relationship with the cook at the place, and then Yasmin is trying to move on, but she's like she really can't move on. Neither one of them can really move on, to be quite honest. And the book about is about how they co-parent, how they're running this business together, the issues that Jasmine had, how Josiah and Jasmine still love each other, but he can't trust her because she wanted to have the divorce because of the her depression that she was going through. My thing about the book was this: if they had just communicated and did what they needed to do, maybe seek therapy, they would have been fine. But this lack of communication in this long ass book was unnecessary. The whole book was unnecessary. I was like, this book, I don't understand why people are so hyped about it because it's not what I expected, nor is it what people made it out to be. But I will say, this book did one thing. Yasmin's friends are the only ones I cared about. Like, I didn't care about Yasmin. Her daughter needed to be popped in the mouth so many times. The daughter got on my damn nerves so many times. I just cared about Yasmin's friends. And I know that the sequel is out and it's about one of Yasmin's friends. So I want to read it, but I'm afraid to read it because this is the second book from Kennedy Ryan and I just did not enjoy it. And I know third time's a charm, but do I want to waste that time? Do I really want to? But I really want to know about this person that the book is about because the second book is about one of her friends named Soledad. And I'm like, yeah, I want to know about what happens with Soledad. But this book, mm-mm, 3.2 for me. And the only reason it's 3.2 is because of Yasmin's friends. So that was the last book I read in the month. And now comes the part where I get to see how I deal with bringing down my physical TBR. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't do that great, and this is why. So I started the month off with 168 books. I was gifted 5 books, and my purchasing. Okay, I purchased 20 books. I don't know what was going on with me. I was just throwing money at books like, ooh, look, yeah, I want that one. Here you go. Ooh, yeah, give me that one. Give me that one. 20 books. Embarrassing. Okay, so I received 3 books from subscription boxes, and I DNF 2 books. Now, out of all the books I read, I only did 8 physical books, which puts me at a total of 194 books. Now, remember, I started with 168 and I ended with 194. I don't think I'm doing this right. My math is not math, and nor am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is helping to bring down my physical TBR. Because I have a whole lot of books I still need to read, and apparently I'm not doing this right. So I'm gonna have to put myself on a budget. I'm gonna have to get myself a plan. Maybe for every 5 books I read, I'll buy 1 book. And that's not going to include my subscription boxes because, sometimes it's a book I want to read. And because I do cheat to see what the new book is going to be, I'm not going to lie, I cheat. So I'll just tell myself I need to read at least 5 books, 5 physical books, before I buy 1 book. So I guess that's what I'm going to try. But I mean, that's my wrap up. Not only is that my wrap up, but that is also my terrible attempt at bringing down my physical TBR. So, until next time, and we do this for the March wrap up, hopefully I done brought the number down because I failed this month. I failed in the month of February. So, until then, enjoy whatever reading that you're doing. Even if it's looking at comic books, enjoy whatever is giving you enjoyment in reading. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.